Welcome to America in Focus. I'm Cole McNeely, General Manager of America's Talking Network. Joining me today on this here episode of America in Focus, the last America in Focus before Christmas this year, is the Center Square's Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief Casey Harper. Casey, Merry Christmas. Anything special going on in the Harper household?
Merry Christmas, Cole. It is a special Christmas for us. We have the family in town, excited to open some presents, spend some good family time, and not have to answer any emails from you or Dan for a few days.
Well, and I hope that was my gift this year. Casey, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but your son, first Christmas, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Anything special happening with your little boy?
Well, you know, it is a special time. He's obsessed with the Christmas star, and he tried to open a present this morning. I can't fault him for that. So it's very exciting. You know, I don't know, having kids has showed me the reason for Christmas, I think. I mean, of course, there's the spiritual reason, which I do believe in, but you realize that all the traditions and all that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what I mean is you do all these traditions and things, you realize like they're way more fun when you have kids because they love it. They kind of, something that maybe has become a little tiresome or just the same thing over and over. To a kid, it's fresh and new and they're so excited and it brings the joy back into it. So I love that. What about you? What are you doing for Christmas?
Family Christmases across the board. No baby like, you know, Casey Harper. So I am.
Any announcement to make?
No announcement to make. But
okay.
You know, Casey, I unlike you, I was not struggling to find the purpose of Christmas. You know, so I'll have to.
You already had
that.
Commercialism, so
commercialism was you get it, yeah. Anyway, so no, I'm excited for Christmas, and you know, it doesn't look like it's going to be a white Christmas for much of the United States or much of anybody. I think it'd be pretty warm, but otherwise, I think it's going to be a grand old time. And
you know who's not having a good Christmas today, Cole, and that's President Joe Biden when he looked at these latest approval ratings. Am I right? Man, you are right. That is a heck of a transition there, Casey. And let's get into this. So thank you.
What we're actually here to talk about, the news of the day. President Joe Biden, his approval rating has been slowly declining from when he entered office. And a new poll came out this week. You know, eve of 2024, not looking great for the president. Monmouth University on Monday released the poll, shows Biden's approval ratings dropped to 34% on approval. And that is the lowest that has been collected from them since he took office. Casey, there's a couple big things that are part of that number as to why his approval rating is so low. But, you know, again, this is not great as we're heading into, you know, an election year, right? For a sitting president to have a 34% approval rating.
Yeah, it's a record low from Monmouth, which is a respected poller on election issues in particular. You know, I mean, go through some of these approval ratings on different issues, and you know, for instance, about 2 out of 3 people disapprove of Biden's handling of immigration. That's 69%. Inflation, he has 68% disapproving. You know, climate change, 54%, jobs and unemployment, 53% disapproval, and energy infrastructure, 52% disapprove. So, you know, there's a couple interesting things to point out about that. One, some of those issues that he has a very high disapproval rating on consistently poll as the most important issues to voters. So inflation has consistently polled in recent years as a top issue for voters, as has like jobs, the economy, unemployment. That category of the economy has always polled as a top issue, actually. And then, and so he has very high disapproval on both of those. And then it's also interesting that issues that might traditionally be considered really important to Democrats, like climate change, and an issue that Democrat voters always say that they trust Democrats more on climate change, he still has, as the Democratic president, a 54% disapproval rating. So even with his own party, and that could be some independents who care about climate change but are not particularly partisan, are not happy with Biden, feel like he hasn't, you know, taken the right angle on all this. Of course, and on inflation has soared almost, you know, about 20% since Biden took office, and wages have not kept up with that. And all of the other polling, if you look at other polling just about the economy in general, before I hand it back to you all, shows that Americans really, whether you look at the, you know, the GDP and how that is, or what the official inflation number is, Americans largely say that they're not doing great. 44% of Americans say they are struggling to remain where they are financially. And a lot of Democrats, in the administration have touted the fact that inflation has slowed down, which is true. Inflation is really not rising at nearly the rate that it was before. And it's pretty much back to a normal rate of increase. But those prices are still much higher than they were a couple years ago, right? Like the prices haven't gone down. And so sure, they're not increasing anymore, but they're still 20% higher than they were just a couple of years ago. So, I think the economy, the higher prices, Americans still feel that, and they really just haven't forgiven Biden for that yet.
Well, and you can't help but think when you look at the number in terms of hitting a new low, the kind of conflict. I'm not sure if there's a real name for it, but happening in Israel, Gaza Strip. That has caused a lot of strife on the left wing of the Democratic Party as well. So that's another chunk
right.
that probably, took him down to as low as, there's kind of the inflation.
I think there's no way to win on the wars. Like, even if, like, I think if we got attacked, when we get attacked or something, approval for president goes up. But foreign wars, whether it's like people just don't get tired of them pretty quickly. The right is really upset about Ukraine. The left is upset about Israel. And so it's just hard to win on those foreign war issues, I think.
Yeah, well, again, it's one of those situations where the base of Joe Biden's base in the Democratic Party is not the far left, right? I mean, it's just not. And so when you see those situations where you kind of see these dropping approval ratings, again, 34%. I think a lot of times it's not a huge indicator of what's going to happen in like the 2024 election, for example. I mean, the election cycle stuff will all start to heat up, and it'll all change, and people will kind of start to filter in wherever they see fit. But at this moment, a snapshot in time, a concern for President Biden in terms of reelection likelihood, and you have to sit there and think that this probably, again, I'm guessing, but the far left wing being unhappy with President Biden over what's happening in the Middle East, especially, that could keep people from coming out to the polls, right? And 2024. Enthusiasm's huge, and Biden has never been big on enthusiasm. I think the reason he had such a big turnout last time was really anti-Trump enthusiasm. Right? Trump generates enthusiasm on both sides. People love him or they hate him, and they're really passionate. And him running, we've seen crazy turnouts both for and against him. And so Biden was able to capture that last time. If Trump's the nominee again, it'll be interesting. I think it's a lot harder to run against Trump as the answer to Trump when you're an incumbent, because Biden's answer last time was like, hey guys, I'm going to come and clean this up. I'm from the good old days of politics when things weren't so crazy. But since Biden's been in, a lot of things have been kind of crazy. He has his own corruption scandal and allegations. He has the economy not doing great. Now there's foreign wars all of a sudden. So for him to come in and say, I'm going to return us back to the good old days of nostalgic American politics of the 2000s, it's not going to have that same ring. And I think it's going to be harder to make that pitch against Trump in that sense. Yeah, I think you're right on that one. So again, President Biden struggling with the approval ratings at this moment in time as we head into 2024. And again, right as we're on the doorstep of 2024, Christmas coming up here in a couple of days, everybody over here at the Center Square and Franklin News Foundation wants to wish all of our listeners a Merry Christmas. And Casey, I will even wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Cole. Thank you.
Listeners, keep up with this story and more. Keep up with all of our election coverage in 2024 at thecentersquare.com. For Casey Harper, I'm Cole McNeely. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening to America in Focus. Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.